Hi, welcome to This Week in Ames. I'm Susan Guiazda. On today's show, we check in with the Planning Department. My guest today is Kelly Diekman, Planning and Housing Director for the City of Ames. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So you've had a pretty busy year with a lot of big projects, but before we get into that, tell me a little bit about your background and how you became the Planning and Housing Director.
Sure. I've been with the city for about 3.5 years now. I have been working mostly on the West Coast in Oregon and California before that. I've worked a lot in urban planning, doing a lot of process for environmental review, looking at infill development, and then we migrated to Ames for a chance for a different environment and a higher quality of life.
And you're originally a Midwesterner, so it was kind of like a homecoming.
Yeah, it was a lot like that. Grew up in South Dakota and graduated from South Dakota State, did attend Iowa State for a year, but that's, yeah, it's a Midwest homecoming.
So working on the coast, sometimes trends and things hit there first. Coming back here to central Iowa, how would you characterize planning in Ames?
It's considerably different. You have in the West Coast, especially in California and Oregon, you have a lot more top-down from the state level, telling you what you must comply with and how to approach your projects, and then you deal with a lot of detail at the local level. In Iowa, you don't have top-down planning. The state enables planning, but doesn't really tell you how you have to go about it. So really, the City of Ames gets to approach every project, every concept how they want to, and kind of customize it to their city rather than think about consistency with state-established procedures.
So recently we've had a lot of momentum with the big project, the Lincoln Way Corridor Plan. Moving forward, moving ahead, it's taken up a lot of your time. Lincoln Way, a very exciting road, goes all the way through Ames, 6.6 miles of it. A lot of people drive it so much they don't think about it, they walk it, they bike it, but it really connects the community.
Right, and actually the corridor plan is trying to give us a little bit of everything, recognizing exactly like you said, it ties the community together, but it doesn't feel like its own place ever. You always feel like you're just kind of passing through places. Now, campus town, you know you're in campus town, but really that's the only place you probably recognize as somewhere in Ames that has an identity. So the plan is pretty ambitious. It has an idea that we should be able to aesthetically improve the whole corridor across the city. We should be able to improve chances for pedestrians and bicyclists. Although people might use the corridor for bicycling and walking, it's not always conducive to that. It's definitely can need improvements. So those kind of basics for everybody are in the plan. But then we went a little bit further and said, what kind of land uses or building types could we see in the future for Ames? And we broke it down into different neighborhoods to try to be a little more contextual to the interests of a neighborhood, but also try to match it to what the corridor could be into the future.
So let's take this big picture overview. Lincoln Way from Interstate 35 all the way out to the west side. This is the only arterial that cuts the city completely in half, bisects. And there are so many different facets to it. So the plan really looked at 5 focus areas.
Right. So we relied a lot upon previous work for transportation modeling, understanding how the traffic works, communicating with SciRide about how transit uses that corridor in different ways. But then in the focus areas, we had 5 of those. You're right. We have essentially the area around West Hy-Vee, which operates kind of as that community commercial area that serves West Ames, very critical to everybody's life in West Ames for access to restaurants, to groceries, to just other activities out there. Then you have Campus Town and its kind of transition or migration further west. How does the city really plan to see additional housing kind of redevelop there to replace some of the more older structures? So that's a different area that's a lot different than West Hy-Vee.
And in Campus Town, you also then start introducing medians into?
So the medians do exist already. They're not really landscaped or planted. That's kind of been in a holding pattern for a number of years. So that's one of those beautification things that kind of works with traffic safety. So we're still working through how traffic safety and pedestrian safety work in the Campus Town area, but then how do we bring some beautification and streetscape into that as well?
So you're looking actually at the street itself as well as the land around it.
Yeah, so we're trying to do it together. In planning, it's a lot better if we recognize the street. It really contributes to the character rather than just think of it as a way for a car to pass through somewhere. So usually in planning, and your urban design gets a lot better when you think about how you interact with the transportation areas, as well as the buildings for not just design and looks, but how they function as well.
Okay, so I interrupted you. So you're going heading east.
So after we leave Campus Town, we kind of have kind of a general area well, past the Iowa State Center and getting to Squaw Creek. Then we get to one of our core neighborhoods called the Oak Riverside neighborhood. And it's an interesting little neighborhood, lots of small family homes, a lot of history in that neighborhood, a real active, vital neighborhood that's engaged in a lot of things in the community. So there's an example area of trying to look at, could some of these houses ever transition to something else that's really compatible with the homes, rather than say we want big redevelopment to come in with apartments. Neighborhood was really clear that apartments are not a big resource that they're looking for, and we absolutely acknowledge that. That's not a real compatible thing there. So we're trying to look at, can you do incremental change, add maybe some small housing types that might work for new people in the neighborhood as well as be compatible for existing residents. And then you get to some of the more interesting areas that are really kind of open for big redevelopment. We had one area that's across from the DOT that's centered on Elm Street, where DOT owns some property on the north side of Lincoln Way. We're not saying DOT ever goes away from the city, but there's a lot of kind of leftover properties there, and DOT owns a big piece. And you could envision long-term some real substantial changes there. It's not going to happen today, but the plan did look at, well, what could of unique uses could we put there for live-work spaces, maybe what we would call flex space, where you allow for more open areas to either work or live or to have just kind of any kind of activity that really wants to be there.
And that really is centrally located. You are pretty much center of the city, so there's a lot of advantages to living and working there.
So I think long term, we kind of decided in the process that the prospects long term are really interesting, but not right now. It's not the one that shows as being available today. So then we get to go to what's probably the most interesting, or at least the highest priority for us, I think, from a lot of different factors, which is to get to what we're calling the downtown gateway area, which is centered on Kellogg and Lincoln Way. And really we're looking at all the way from Duff to Clark, so it's a pretty substantial area. And it's not just a downtown gateway in the sense of, well, let's put up some wayfinding signs that say downtown this way. It's like, how do we add complementary uses, things that will actually add energy to downtown, add more interest to the community for things that we want to go as a destination, not just pass by as maybe what we call strip commercial today.
Yeah, so that area is got a lot going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot coming at you. It's busy. It's there's already a lot of signage, but it's not particularly memorable. It's not. Many people will drive by and say, didn't realize that's how you could access downtown. So some of these things that you're talking about in this plan would maybe change that.
Yeah, so there's, again, we're trying to bring all the layers in. So we need to recognize that it's currently a highway. We would like to see that maybe transition to a more moderate level of traffic in the future when we do the Grand Avenue extension. So that frees up some space to look at wider sidewalks, better bike facilities.
Now that's the highway because that's the US 69 as it goes from Grand transitions over to Duff. Okay.
So we do have to be aware of that as a highway. But what we're really looking for here is not just some streetscape improvements with new signage or lights, but really promote changing the whole landscape about how the buildings look, what the uses are there. So I think the key idea here was that we want to be proactive as a city. City Council looked at this last night and decided, hey, we are in for these ideas that bring more use, maybe support this with public investment in terms of street right-of-way or maybe parking that could bring a unique use to the area. So I think that's something we're going to be following up on here, and you can probably hear a lot more about in the summer is what are the real redevelopment options here? How can the city partner with something to get a unique or creative use that you wouldn't normally get?
Well, I sense a lot of momentum. As you said, the City Council met recently and seemed excited. It seemed like this plan offered a lot of potential, gave a glimpse of what could be, not necessarily what will be, but sort of opened that door.
Yeah, I think, and a lot of people really focus on the downtown gateway as how do you continue to do infill development, which really fits our smart growth ethic and our sustainability ethics as a community. It also brings a lot of economic development opportunities to the city and just continues to reinforce that we're a community that's investing in ourselves and trying to grow in a smart way. So
the plan is available online. You can look at a draft copy of the plan, cityofames.org, go to planning, and it's under...
we'll put it under what's new, and you'll find the Lincoln Corridor plan under what's new.
Okay. Well, it's really too much to talk about in just this short period of time, but thank you for sharing with us.
You're welcome.
Again, if you want more information about the Lincoln Way Corridor Plan, you go to our website, cityofames.org, look under planning, and you'll find it under what's new. Just one more item for your calendar. Please remember, Furman Aquatic Center season passes will be on sale only until May 1st, so make sure to get your discounted pass before that date. Remember, the pool will open on Memorial Day weekend. Well, that's our show for today. Thanks for watching, and tune in next week for This Week in Ames.